Okay, everybody. Hello, good afternoon. Uh, Welcome to our second webinar of this week. It's the 25th of March, and I understand that some of you wanted us to do this on a daily basis, and we've had quite a few discussions on the forum saying, where were we yesterday? In fact, we will now make it something daily. And I think we'll wait until you tell us you've had enough, at which point we will then knock it back down to perhaps every other day or something or other. There is quite a lot happening at the moment, but I appreciate you've got a lot of calls on your times, and we didn't want to get in the way and cause you any more hassle. And just to say straight away that the question and answer session that we had on Monday has now been put into an article. Jacquie's been working hard on that, and Alex at our office to get it all fit in, and that is now going to be, it is now available on the ICB hub, so you get that obviously through your My ICB. But welcome back. I think we've probably got the hints of some better news for those of you that are self-employed. I did mention in a couple of the bulletins that I've been sending out on the emails and Twitter, etc., that the government has been pushed or is being pushed to do more for the self-employed. I think they're finding it a little bit more difficult to decide how to distribute money to the self-employed, but they are working on it. And the Prime Minister has mentioned in the House this morning that he will make an announcement, he said, over the coming couple of days. Now, I went through last night and looked at the parliamentary business, and I was amazed how much had to be done to get something like this through government. So it has to have 3 readings in the House of Commons, in the middle of which it has committee restructuring if anybody wanted something changed. And then it has to go via the House of Lords, and finally it has to be signed off by the Queen. And they are putting through a fantastic amount of legislation at the moment, not only obviously to look after the self-employed people, but also legislation also announced already, like the 80% pay, etc. That all has to be legislated for. They can't just do it. And I said on Monday that I was a bit surprised what they could and couldn't do. But June has been busy reading away this morning at what other business is taking place, but some quite incredible stuff. And some of it based on the fact that some people, unfortunately, will not get through this. So they had to put legislation through, such as minimum classroom sizes might have to grow if there are not enough teachers left. If MPs unfortunately pass away, then a smaller number of MPs can be guaranteed, can be called a quorum, etc., etc. So all that's being done, and I understand that if they're not working 24 hours a day, it's very close to it. So anyway, welcome back again. One thing I will also say that came out of Monday, which was a bit of an open-ended question, and we have now got clarification on. If you have direct debits in place for you or your clients to pay your VAT or anything else, you should cancel those direct debits. That's an instruction directly from HMRC, and that is because HMRC is concentrating on all sorts of things, and closing down the direct debits is not at this moment one of their priorities. They will not do it intentionally, but everything nowadays is automated. They want to make sure you don't suddenly notice a chunk of money being taken out of your account for that reason. I mentioned on Monday that most of us had not seen anything like the current crisis in our lifetimes. I said that I was probably the oldest one on here to remember the 3-day week. Many of you have very kindly emailed me and texted me telling me that actually you also remember it, so that's something. But the other thing that I didn't think about, and I remembered it this morning, is of course that we've got quite a large number of colleagues who are farm bookkeepers, and the farming community have experienced foot and mouth on at least 3 occasions in my memory when they've had something similar, where whole communities were closed down and people didn't know who was carrying the virus and various other things. So our thoughts go out to you once again, to our farming community. And this is, however, a very strange time for us all. Living here in London, there were gatherings in restaurants and pubs. That didn't go down very well for obvious reasons. That has now stopped, and it's very much like a ghost town here. We live quite in the centre, and shops have basically just taken all of the goods out of their windows so that they don't get looted or something or other. And yeah, it's walking past just huge parts of huge windows with nothing behind them. And we're all now on lockdown, I think, apart from those of you who've got some sort of specialist job that you have to do, that you can't do from home. As I mentioned, also on Monday, ICB offices have been closed. They were closed last week. And we're all now working from home, and our service remains much as it was beforehand. Everybody is answering phones, and I know from looking at the numbers that are coming through, a slight increase of in the number of phone calls, but the length of the calls is getting greater, because I think a lot of you are ringing us up actually for a bit of reassurance and somebody to chat to. And I would stress that we're very happy to do that, particularly if you are self-isolating and you're by yourself. And I know we have a lot of our bookkeepers who are single people. They do work by themselves. This is going to be obviously a pretty bad time for many of you. You have to look after yourself, as we all do, but you have to be careful that you don't just isolate and have no contact with other people, probably one or two clients or whatever it might be. Give the ICB a call, talk to them, have a chat with them. For as long as we can and for as long as we have the capacity, we will continue to do that. We love to talk to you anyway, but please don't feel that you're left by yourself. I did say at Summit, I've said it a couple of times, but I asked you what you thought the one unique thing about your business is, and my answer was that it's you. You are the most important thing to your business. Now, you're obviously the most important person to your family, to your friends, to your relatives, but also to the business and therefore to your clients. So it is important that you do everything you possibly can to make sure that you don't get this virus, or if you do, that you get the mild version and you get through it quickly. We hope and pray that none of you get the harder case, because I'm not sure how many of you saw on television last night. There was a wife on there talking about her husband who was 6 foot something or other, and rode 32 miles on a bike every Saturday, very, very fit, a little like myself, obviously. And he got this, and she said it was horrible to see him in the bed, gasping for breath. It really doesn't bear thinking about. So please be very careful. Don't take any risks. And let's see if we can eventually get through all this together. Now, I'm very pleased again to have with me Jacquie Mount. Jacquie, if you're there.
Yes, I am. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello there. It's been pretty hectic. I know everybody's got stories to tell at the moment, but you've been doing a fair amount on trying to keep up to date with the legislation. I know you've got a lot of stuff that you've now picked up. Everybody can probably find this somewhere, but I think the thing that we're trying to do at the moment is focus on the items that we think are of most interest to our members, and we're getting that from forums, we're getting it from emails, and we're getting it from phone calls. And every time we get something that we don't have the answer for, we hand that down the line to you in the hope that you'll be able to find it out, which is which is not a new function for yourself, obviously. No. Tell us what you've got for us today.
Okay, well, I've been picking up information from HMRC today, and also from the various forums and websites and everything else. We've put the article up this afternoon. Please note, though, that there is almost a disclaimer on the article that says the information that's gone up is as we understand it today, and the information about the direct debits for that needs to be changed, because I still had on there when we posted it earlier that we weren't sure. So that will all be changed today. few things cropped up. Looking at the 80% furlough, we've already got 2 questions up here. I have seen today that the 80% of wage is actually possibly being considered as 80% of employer costs. Now that is a massive change, because what it means is that that could include employers' national insurance and employers' pension contributions, which is very different. Because it means then that you would probably have to calculate what you're going to pay so that you can retain your employer costs out of that. But literally, I saw it on a website today, so I'm not 100% certain where that's come from. I'm trying to verify that from the HMRC website, which I will do. There is a question online that says about a client with 2 part-time members of staff who don't earn enough to pay tax. Will they be able to go to the 80%? I haven't heard that it's limited to part-time staff or full-time staff, or that there's any de minimis level on payment. So I would imagine the question to that is actually going to be yes, they will still be included in the
Jackie,
payment.
can I, if I can just interrupt you for a second there? We've had a couple of telephone calls and an email from members whose clients have been asking them to give everybody a wage increase so that the 80% is greater than it would have been. One of our members has said that she has been pushed very hard by her client's accountant to do this. The accountant has said it is okay. They'll just make up for it later. I would just stress to our members, I know you're all sitting there shaking your heads a bit like Jackie is.
Yeah.
Please don't get involved with this. We have a very bad situation here. We don't want any sort of fraudulent activity coming out of this, and we certainly don't want you as members to be part of this or pushed into it. So if you feel that you are being pressured to do something like this, or do something which is overstating the value of a company, turnover, salaries, or anything else, please get in touch with us, and we will talk it through with you and see what we can do to help. And we still have Steve Hardwick standing by if we need anything specifically along these lines. He will help with this. But just to say that I'm not surprised that somebody hasn't been trying to come up with this, but people who are doing this and also trying to get their children from university on the payroll as well very quickly.
I think just to come back on that one, Gary, and somebody's actually just answered this on the chat. You cannot use the current rate of pay as of today. It's the rate of pay still to be determined, but we think it will either be the rate of pay that was in force on the 28th/29th of February, or it's going to be the average of the last 3 months, and we haven't heard that yet, because that is going to apply to zero-hour workers on 0-hour contracts. How do you work out what their wage rate was? And what I've seen is it may very well be that it's the average of their last 12 weeks working.
Yeah.
And the minimum wage, as far as I'm aware, and I've put this in the article, that the increases in living wages and minimum wages still do take effect, but of course are not valid for the 80% because it's after the 28th of February. There's one here about 2 jobs. Can they both claim to be put on furlough? It depends if they're furloughed. The employers can claim. So if you've got 2 jobs, I can't see that that's going to make a difference. Does the 80% bring it below the minimum wage? That's something I'll have to look into to see what the effect is going to be on the minimum wage. So I'll make a note on that one and get back to you on that one.
Yeah, one of the points there about what percentage of your staff have to be furloughed. Somebody asked the question of HMRC on something I read overnight. I'm on a retail premises. My staff have all been laid off, but I am paying a security guard throughout to make sure that nobody loots. Does this mean that they're not all furloughed? Now, my understanding is that that doesn't affect it. So I presume it's not the number of people, it's whether they have been properly furloughed.
And for example, I spoke to one of our members on the phone and we did some research. And I've done some checking on this. And for example, there is, say, a garage that has 2 employees, but only has work for one. One will be furloughed and one will carry on working, and they're discussing with them what they're going to do. So it's not company-wide, which may then go back to the question that's been going around about directors of companies and the legal side of having a director and keeping the company on as a going concern. So as we said, this is all a movable feast, and what we say is available as of 15:15 on the 25th of March. It may very well change by this evening. The question about the vulnerable employee enforced to stay at home for 12 weeks, again, I think that's one we're going to have to look at and come back to you on that one. Okay, I'll read through those. Garry, do you want me to pick up on some of the new stuff that's come out today?
Yes, please. Anything that you've got, really, which you think
Yeah.
is
Couple of emails out from HMRC, from Companies House. There is a 3-month extension to file accounts at Companies House, but you do have to apply for it. There is a fast track online system. It takes about 15 minutes to complete, and you have to give the site that the issue or later filing is around the COVID-19 pandemic, and then that should automatically give you a 3-month extension. However, companies who have already applied for an extension will probably not be able to get a further extension. And if the return is late and no extension has been applied for, then penalties will still apply. And the comment on the HMR website is that the registrar, has very limited powers to reduce penalties. So if you're in a position of needing to file accounts at Companies House and you can't do it for COVID reasons, get the application to extend in.
Jackie, and the original information was that if you ask, there will be an automatic 2-month eligibility, but at the end of that 2 months you had to ask, at which point you could potentially get a further month, but over and above that there is no legislation which allows them to make that decision at
but I
stage.
think what I saw today says that has now been extended to an automatic 3 months.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
That came up on the Companies House website this morning. So that's that one. A little bit on producing company accounts I've been reading about. Depending on the balance sheet date, and I'm sure it will affect a lot of companies. Under FRS 102, it's a question of whether you are going to have to disclose any impairment to the company because of COVID-19. Such things as, is the company still a going concern? What's the value of assets and any goodwill? Has that been impaired? And also what's happening to your pensions if you're making declarations about the amount of the pension scheme in there. On Monday, we had a question about, is the government grant coming in towards the salaries going to be taxable? I looked this up, and you need to have a look at under FRS 102, section 24 covers how to deal with income from government grants, and it's been confirmed, I think, that this is a standard government grant, therefore it falls under FRS 102 section 24 for those that are interested. The Financial Reporting Council have today published some guidance for auditors. I don't have a link to it yet. Yes, that's for auditors, but if auditors are looking at it, it may be something that we might be interested in looking at when we're formulating company accounts. I've already mentioned that the 80% grant could include company employers, NICs and pension contributions. I'll try and get some more information for that for you for, say, Friday. And the only one that I've found today that's come up for self-assessment is, although we don't at the moment, under our current qualification for self-assessment cover foreign income, the new level 4 qualification will. And the domicile the standard statutory residence test at the moment for foreign workers and domicile states that they will be domiciled or resident if they've been in the UK for more than 183 days. Because of the travel restrictions, that may very well be extended. And as the tax year end for that's probably going to be the 5th of April, that may or may not apply when you come to doing a self-assessment tax return.
Jackie, can I just add that June is watching the debate in the House at the moment, not actually in the House, she's watching it from our house. And the suggestion that's being put forward at the moment is that self-employed people are also offered 80% of their gross, which is averaged over 3 years or however long the records cover. So I think that means shorter than 3 years rather than longer than 3 years. But so they're trying to bring it very much in line with what is happening for people on PAYE. I stress that currently being debated, but I don't really think the debates are doing really much other than nodding. But that, I think, will be a huge help to, well, probably 50% of who are self-employed,
As I read it this morning, they were still trying to decide whether it was going to be turnover or net profit, but they were talking about turnover, the last thing I heard, but we'll just watch this space on that one as to what comes out.
I think the same maximum rather of £2,500 is still there, but that's a lot better than £95 a week or whatever.
A lot better. Yeah.
But obviously, once this comes out, they'll announce it. But then there will also be a huge scrap round to try and find how they do this and how they verify people's accounts, etc. Again, bookkeepers really are going to be in high demand, I think, when all this happens.
A couple of questions coming up on the chat. Can you defer the furlough for a month or as long as we can last, then still take the 3 months from there? Or does it have to start from now? No, because companies can still work and you can start your furlough. But I wouldn't say 3 months from then, because the furlough only goes up to the end of June at the moment. So it may very well be that you'll only get 2 months. This is the sort of thing that's going to come out in the detail. Can a furloughed employee accept the offer of short-term employment from another employer? It's a difficult one, that one, because you are on furlough because you're unable to work for your employer. So if you take another job, you're not free to work for the employer anyway. So therefore, I'm not sure that will happen. That's a bit, you can't have it both ways.
Jackie, one that we were discussing just before we came up on air, it says here, I have seen on forums that payroll providers can be considered as key workers. However, bookkeepers and accountants do not appear as key workers. Is there any guidance on this? I have one client where I can do the majority of their payroll from home, but do need to visit their offices to collect files. As I said to you, Jackie, I saw this also yesterday. I haven't got an answer yet from the Department of Education, funnily enough, because the reason you become a key worker is if you want to be able to give your children schooling still, whether they can still go to school. So the Department of Education is dealing with this. Some organisations think that they've got the okay for payroll people to go. It actually says payment professionals, not pay professionals. Payment providers. Now, to my mind, if you are trying to keep staff paid, then I think you will probably come under the go to work only when necessary and keeping the 2 metre distance, etc., etc. I really don't think this is going to come under the key worker section. I think that's probably a misinterpretation, but we are looking at that because really, I know you have files that are with your clients. It's down to you as individuals, but you need to be very careful. I don't think you can go to work and think that your kids can keep going to school. I don't think that other than that, there's any reason why you want to be designated as a key worker. At the moment, the government has said, if you can't work from home, you can still go to work. And then I think it's down to your decision. But I think if I were you, I would certainly be trying to find a way of doing this remotely, however that happens. But I'll keep you informed as we go through the week on that one.
Okay, couple of more questions. Is there any delay available in paying corporation tax due on the 31st of March? We haven't heard that there's a delay in corporation tax yet. There is a quick question on the £10,000 grant for small businesses, come from local councils. We haven't heard anything about that. I've certainly seen nothing about people working from home. It purely covers those that have small business rates to help them to carry on paying bills for everything. So working at home, I have a funny feeling you probably won't get that. I don't know. Does gross wage include bonus and overtimes? No, I don't think it does. I think it's only basic, but I'm not sure. But we'll have to.
I think also we've got one here about the amount of pay that is covered by the 80%.
Yeah.
Does the employer still have to pay the extra 20%? My understanding from the early discussion was that actually no. But it's whether or not the employer feels honour bound to pay the 20%, but they must pay them the 80%. So in other words, they can't get the 80% back and not pay all of it directly to the employee.
Although, again, certainly on the ICAW website this morning, they were saying that their interpretation of it at the moment is that the 80% includes employers' NICs and employers' pension costs, because it is wages costs, not necessarily gross wage. So I think that's something we still need clarification on.
Yeah, okay.
But that did come from another website, not from HMRC. What happens if people can't file their VAT on time? We haven't heard that the VAT returns are deferred. You think you're just going to have to file what you can, and then if information comes to you later, deal with it. But again, this is as much as I can see happening at the moment.
I said on Monday, Jackie, that our information was that the return has to go in regardless.
Yeah.
You know, it's always been the way, though, hasn't it, with the VAT people?
Yeah.
As long as you've got your return in, you're less of a sinner than if you don't actually get the money.
Absolutely. There's another quick question on, if someone started on the 1st of March and now furloughed, can the employer still claim? I don't think so, because they have to have been in on the payroll at the end of February, either the 28th or the 29th of February. So I think the answer to that is probably no, they can't. Single company directors, we did deal with on Monday. There is something in the article about that. 80% for weekly paid employees as well as monthly. Yes, it's for all employees.
We've got our member, Paul Beer. Hello, Paul. Hi there. Paul used to do a lot of payroll work for us with exams and various other things. He's just saying that if the 2,500 for employers is to include NIC and pension costs, it probably means, does that mean that the maximum gross pay will be 2,243? Again, we'll chase that up. But what he does say is that the CIPP, the Chartered Institute of Payroll Professionals, have confirmed that it does include payroll staff. Now, again, this is what we heard from them yesterday, but I'm not sure they asked the right question of a very, very busy education department. So we are seeking clarification on that. But it's down to you, really, what you think you can and can't do at this moment.
There is a question up there about statutory sick pay. Now, I have put something in the article about this today, because and again, it is my personal view on this. I've seen nothing in writing, but logically, under the payroll, if somebody has been self-isolating for 2 weeks on statutory sick pay and then is fit and able to come back, they will have to get a fit note, which I think you can now download from the NHS 111 website at the online. You can download your fit note rather than go to the doctors for it. Once they are back at work, then they are fit to work. So therefore, if you haven't got any work for them, you can furlough them. And I think that one is probably okay. What happens if your member of staff is still sick is a slightly different matter, because if they're unable to work, you may not be able to furlough them. So therefore, you may not be able to claim the money, but the SSP stops being refunded to you after the 2 weeks. So that's one I've said in the article. I do need to do some more research on that one.
Helen has just passed us a note. Hi, Helen. I'm not sure which Helen you are, but Helen, hello. To say which article The article that Jackie is referring to is the article that's just been put up on the hub. It's the question. It's an article covering all the questions that were asked on Monday, and the latest. And I stress what Jackie said earlier. The latest, as of when she finished writing it, information that we have. Although that is changing on a minute-by-minute basis, and it will be updated as quickly as we are able on an ongoing rolling basis.
We've got one about a client gets a director's salary and furloughed and is also self-employed. So can she also claim for the self-employment 80%? Our members are getting far too clever, you know. You're all far too bright for me at the moment. The answer to that is I haven't got the faintest idea. I'll have to go away and look at it. Seems
yeah,
I don't know if you've got, I mean, if you've got 2 jobs, yes, I suppose you could do. So I don't know. I'll look into that one.
Yeah, it is a difficult one, and I think what a lot of our members are telling us at the moment is a lot of the what can I call it, the work that they've been doing, or some of their clients are doing, to try and minimise the amount of tax they pay during the year, albeit legally, in paying minimum wage and dividends and going self-employed, etc., is actually going to come back to haunt them a little bit now, because a lot of the stuff that they kept off the payroll is not going to be allowed for a lot of this grants, etc. So it's something perhaps to remember when we get through all of this, that hopefully more and more people are going to see this as a reason now to go 100% legitimate. I'm not talking about people who pay 10 or 11% or whatever it might be, or 20% on dividends, but we do have a lot of people that earn the basic sort of £12,000 and then pay themselves £100,000 as a dividend. But I think that's probably, those are the people that are going to get caught out.
Oh, here's an interesting one. It's to do with furloughing and employment contracts. I think also, as Garry said, this will possibly have a knock-on effect into what people take out their companies. I think it's going to have a huge knock-on effect onto employment contracts as well, because you can only go through this situation if your contract that you have with your members of staff allows it. If there is a clause in your contract of employment that says you can effectively furlough them or take them off pay if you haven't got work for them. Otherwise, there is a minimum daily rate. I think it's £29 a day that kicks in. It's some form of, it's a legislative thing, which I have to say I've only just found out about. Apprentices, again, not sure, their income's very low, possibly, but we'll have a look at that one.
Can we find an employee who stays at home because their partner is classed as a key worker? I would think so. Do you?
Sorry, say that again, Garry.
Can we furlough an employee who stays at home because their partner is classed as a key worker?
I think if you have no work for them, I think that's it. If
they can't work from home,
if they can't work from home, and you can't therefore give them any work, I think yes, you could probably furlough them. Is furloughing staff optional? Can the company decide to issue P45s due to cash flow issues paying and don't want to take out a loan? It's not the law that you have to furlough them. You can lay them off and give them a P45. There's been a huge amount of negative publicity the past few days about various companies that have done so. There's a hotel, and there's a particular retail establishment that's done that, and a lot of negative publicity on it. The idea is that you don't lay them off, but if you don't want to take out the loan and you can't afford to pay them, you may have to. But I have to say, you have to do it within employment law. So you may have to give them a month's notice. If the contract says they have a month's notice, you can't lay them off immediately because you'll be breaking employment law. So you're going to have to pay them for a month anyway. And hopefully by the end of April, the grants will start to come through to help you out.
Yeah, and I think also if you lay them off and then bring them back on again, the whole question of TOOP will raise its head again, because if it was just as a way of getting around the immediate cash shortage, if you then want to employ the same people on the same terms and doing the same job, they might argue that they should get all the benefits exactly the same as previously. So a lot of questions to come out of this, I think. And I apologise if this is a question and answer session. We don't necessarily have all the answers, but looking at the way ministers are talking at the moment, they don't have any answers either. It's very much a let's play it as it goes, and today is one answer, tomorrow is another. But I'm hoping that the ability to listen to a different voice and having a chat about this will help you all in some way. And I'm hoping we're being of use to you.
Right, couple of quick ones here. VAT payments due on the 7th of April can be deferred. Again, when you get to see the article, I've put the dates in there and what the effect is on each month's VAT return, so that one's in there. Sylvia's asking, hi Sylvia, asking about owner-manager businesses, I think that is, directors on salary and dividends. Are they self-employed? If they're on a salary, no, they're not self-employed, they're employed. And the fact that they're taking a dividend, that doesn't make them self-employed. So I think probably the self-employment may not apply to them. This is where, as Gary said earlier, where they're taking a low salary and taking dividends. On a completely aside comment here, when I was in practice some years ago, I had a client who did just that, took the dividend and applied for a mortgage and didn't get it because his salary wasn't high enough and they refused to include the dividends in his income. So I don't know whether this is the same sort of thing. Earliest start date of the furlough is 1st of March.
That's a seagull in the background.
Yes, I'm sorry. It's one of the penalties you get.
Roaring with laughter.
Yeah, it's one of the penalties you get. Oh, and I tell you who else down here doesn't self-isolate, as a very light-hearted comment. The blackbirds on my bird table, had 8 of them on there this morning, fighting for food like people fight for toilet rolls in the shops. I was absolutely disgusted with them this morning. But yes, you live at the seaside, you get seagulls, sorry. There's a bit more about, I think that's the one Gary's already mentioned, that from Paul.
Yeah, whilst you're waiting for any more questions to come through, or you're sifting through some of those, I said before when we first started that really this is all about you all keeping yourselves fit and well and doing exactly what the government asks you to do. I should imagine some of you will be volunteering to be one of the band of 250,000 fantastic people who are going to help out during this crisis with delivering food and various other things. Although some of you, perhaps with asthma and various other complaints, will be using this as a reason to really stay tucked up and away from everybody for as long as possible. But when this first came about, a lot of the self-employed members got very panicky, and as did their self-employed clients. I think you should, as I said to you before, you should be trying to keep in touch with your clients, if nothing else, because they're going to have to do something when this is all gone. But now it would be wise perhaps to give them a call today and say, I don't know if you've seen what's going on in Parliament, but there seems to be a bit of a light at the end of your tunnel. That something going to be bigger and better that's coming through. And just make them aware that you know what's going on, that they're going to have to claim all this money, they're going to have to do things, and you are probably the best person to help them. As we know, our clients know very little about finances, even less about bookkeeping, and it is foxing them. And in fact, I've just had an email from Rob Burleson at Intuit. They are going to come online with us. We're just trying to fix up which day it will be, because one of the things that has happened over the last sort of 2 to 3 years is that a lot of self-employed people have been convinced to go it alone. They've got their phone and they can do their own books, they can do their own accounts, it's all going well. That's all very well when things are normal. It's hard enough for them then. I know a lot of you have picked up clients over the last year or so that have got totally confused by it all. It looks sexy, it looks fun, but you know, at the end of the day, they're not bookkeepers, they don't want to be, and they can't, most of them have got no idea at all. But what we're finding now is that those people, some of those people, are now getting in an absolute panic because there isn't a button to press for this one. And therefore, bookkeepers are coming into their own. And I said in an article I wrote in the newsletter last month, last year, our members took on over 10,000 new clients. That is a huge growth in clients. And the year before, it was just over 9,000. So a lot of this is making tax digital, but a lot of it, I believe, is people having a go themselves and then deciding to come back because they really don't want to do it. So we have to make as many positives as we can from this plethora of negatives that are being thrown at us at the moment. Everybody's going to need help. Everybody's going to need something. And also remember that your clients not only are businesses, very much like yourselves, they are individuals, they are family people. They've got other struggles as well. And the last thing that they want is hassle over whether or not they've got their VAT return in. So, bear with them. A lot of gut reaction saying, that's it, I'm throwing the towel in, I'm never going to go into business again. They'll have had time to think about it now. Make sure you make contact with them. Even if they keep saying that they're not going to go back into business, the good thing about bookkeepers and their clients is that they get a camaraderie, a friendship, and people. So don't desert them at this time. That, I think, will make a big difference. And, but pick up the phone and talk to them. Because a lot of bigger firms are sending out emails, and you're seeing pictures of people sitting at home with their kids talking and various other things, but it's not personal. Everything a bookkeeper does is very, very personal. It's one of our biggest selling points. We now need to maintain that and show people why it is that for all these years they've been using a bookkeeper. I'll get off the soapbox now, Jackie. Over to you.
Yeah, okay. Sylvia, thanks very much for the comment. She's come back. If the dividend as an income thing does seem to be accepted by lenders these days in the experience of my clients. Thank you for that. It is a few years since I was in practice. So one interesting question that actually is a new one. If somebody furloughs an employee, and when the business starts trading, they find that they need to lay them off, does the business have to pay the 80% already claimed back to the HMRC? Watch this space on that one, because I'm not sure where we go with that one. I'm just looking down the webinar chat. Oh, people on statutory maternity pay. We haven't seen anything about this. Again, I did put a suggested comment up in the article. When they come, while they're on statutory maternity pay, you can still continue paying them because you get all of that back plus another, I think it's 4%, towards your employer/insurance contribution. So it's when they come off of SMP, if you then furlough them because you cannot take them back to work, I think that's okay, but I have no idea what you would base their wage on. I think it would probably have to go back to the wage that they were on when they were getting their 90% for the first 6 weeks or whatever. So again, watch that. PAYE and NIC payments due on the 19th of April. I've seen nothing to say that payments have been deferred. Somebody can't find the article. There was a link up. It should be up there soon. Hopefully in the news section on our website.
For us.
The daily rate for temporary layoff only applies for 5 days in any period of layoff under legislation. That's what I said earlier about if you're laying people off without it not being in the contract. There is just one more, Gary. There's an awful lot coming up still about these owner-manager businesses, and I think we probably need to do something specific on that, Gary.
Right. The article, by the way, is on the website. Hit resources button across the top, and it will come up as COVID.
And we have it.
And just having a look, just a second. Yeah, there's a big red banner, COVID-19 there, and that will give you a link to everything that we've done so far. And one thing that can I just mention, if you have clients that are laying their staff off for whatever reason, they are now at home, they're working at home even. Sorry, it's if they're working at home, they must take holidays. They can't hold their holidays till after all this has fallen through and then take holidays later. So that's the employers. And I know people say, well, I'm working from home and et cetera, et cetera. Yes, but you have to take a holiday. And I think this is to stop. If this carries on for 6 months, let's say, if the worst comes to the worst, then, the last 6 months for most companies would be a disaster. So they have to take holidays. The second reason for it, quite obviously, is that although you're working from home, you are getting pretty stressed out at the moment, a holiday would do you good. And that holiday is turning off the laptop and turning off the phone. You are still stuck in the same place with the same, hopefully lots of people, nice people, but you have to take a holiday. You have to take a break from work, and businesses are going to be expected to make sure that that actually happens. Jackie.
Yeah, someone's just said to me, do I live at the beach? Not exactly, I'm only about a mile away from it. So, you know, it's a hop, skip and a jump for seagulls. Sorry, again, very light-hearted. A bit about agreeing to furlough. No, they were getting 80% of their wages. If you can agree this with your staff, there is no problem. If it's only if they don't agree to their 80% of the wages that you could end up with an HR problem. If you agree, and I think most people in the current circumstances would do, if only it's saving them their fares into work.
And a bit like are you living by the seaside and do you have seagulls and all the rest of it? Somebody was asking what this weird looking picture is that's behind me. So I'll just very quickly show you. It's an abstract. It's by a man called Tim Jago Morris. He's a family friend. He's a young guy. He's slightly off the edge, but nonetheless, we put it up there because we got the opportunity to get one of his prints. And we like him. I have to say a lot more than his prints, but nonetheless, there it is. So if anybody's interested in Tim Jago Morris, I'm sure you can find him on the web. It's a bit sort of Aztec as far as I'm concerned. Do we have any more, Jackie?
Yes, there's a couple in here. Somebody's asking about a self-employed client wishing to claim universal credits. Is the savings threshold still limited to £16,000? Haven't seen anything about it, but we'll look into that. And Carol's asked, and I spoke to Carol about this morning actually. Hi, Carol. Is there going to be any help for businesses who are still trading because they need to provide a service and goods to people but have a much reduced turnover? For example, ICB members. Carol and I had a chat about this on the phone this morning, and I have said we have to wait to see what the announcement is on self-employment assistance, and then we can start picking that apart and seeing what happens to those on rapidly reduced income.
Right, I think I mentioned on Monday that we've been in touch with OPBAS, our regulators, our money laundering regulator under the FCA, because they'd said we must continue with our inspection visits. We said this was not possible. We were moving out to our homes to work. We were not going to go visiting other people. They said, well, we should. However, the following day, we got something to say that OPBAS has itself now all been sent home, and therefore they won't be visiting people. So we've written back and said, no. Anyway, the latest is that we have to give them, we have a meeting, a telephone meeting with them at 1 o'clock on Friday. We have to give them our plan for the COVID period. And we will actually be telephoning some of you and just asking, just probably to check your details are correct, because one of the biggest problems we have with people on our database is that you forget to tell us when you move offices or change company name or become limited, etc., etc. It's part of what we will be doing, but rest assured we're not going to turn up on your doorstep and demand entry and bring with us any sort of bug or anything else. One thing I would mention is that you are reminded, or we're all reminded by the FCA, that whenever there is anything like this and there is a human price to pay, there is always somebody trying to do a fiddle in the background, and be very careful with people claiming that they're going to give you something which will help your business or give you a special loan or asking for any information from you. Please do all you can to make sure it's bona fide, because the crooks are already out there, and we do need to be very careful. And also, if you've got a business that appears to be struggling and then suddenly gets large amounts of cash going through the business, just make sure that it's not the local drug dealer who's run out of his normal source and decides to use an ailing small business who needs an extra couple of quid commission. I'm saying it a little bit flippantly, but one of our members has also already had an approach, and that's been reported to the police already. So just be careful out there, guys, please.
Quick one here. Is it okay for a client to email employees to furlough them, or do they need to send a letter and sign a receipt? I think this is a legal document thing, and Gary, you probably know this better than me. I have an understanding that emails can now be considered to be legal documents. So as long as it's been received and maybe replied to, it's legal.
Yes, I think you need to reply. I mean, it's not quite watertight, but under the circumstances, I think that the walls are coming down a little bit. If you can get an electronic signature, great. And I know a lot of people have suddenly started selling very expensive electronic signatures. It's not 100% necessary, but I think that if it's from somebody you don't know or you're not sure of, then you would be expected to take a little bit more care. So, you know, how you do that, whether you want to see them on a Skype or on a Zoom or something or other, so you can see their face and that they're sitting in, I don't know, wherever, and they've got a bit of proof there, then that will be it. And again, as I said on Monday, if you're taking on a new client, we can only ask you to do whatever due diligence and risk assessment you can. We will take into account the fact that it is difficult at the moment, but please don't let that mean that you will take on a client that you think is probably a bit dodgy, but you can't prove either one way or the other, so you'll give it a go. We are going to need proper proof when this all finishes, and you'll need to have that on file. But there are ways of doing it, like Googling people, looking up for them on LinkedIn, Google Earthing them to see where their offices are or what size of company they are, etc., etc. And those of you who've been to our many money laundering seminars over the years will probably remember the story I told you about one of our members that was called in to look at the accounts of a tanning salon that had got a turnover of 2 million. And when she went in to look at it, it was a dingy little shop with a sunbed at the back. And all it was they were taking money in from crooks. And we know that this sort of stuff still goes on. You know, I just want you to be careful. Perhaps a little bit more careful than you would normally be, because you can't visit people, you can't physically take a copy of their passport, but don't immediately presume that because you can't do it the old-fashioned way or the pre-COVID way that you can't take on a new client. You're going to get a lot of new clients who want some help.
Oh, here's a nice one from Jenny. Can an employer choose to pay some employees 80% and other employees 100% while they are furloughed? If you want a fight between your employees when they go back to work, then possibly. No, I'm not even going to attempt to answer that one, sorry. That's a discrimination. That could very well be discrimination, actually.
Yeah, I think you need to be careful.
There's one here on help for landlords who are not self-employed, but income comes from property. If tenants cannot pay and are rightly entitled to 3 months without eviction, but they still have mortgage and running costs, is there any help for them? Haven't heard anything yet, but I will make a note on that and property and try and look that one up for you.
We did hear that people might be expected to take out loans against the capital that they have in the properties. And I know a lot of people have been saying they've got lots and lots of properties and the amount of capital is actually, it's very slim. But again, it's a question of get rich quick, repent at some leisure. I think you need to be careful on that.
One here says, I keep being asked if a person was self-employed, should they start claiming universal credit now? I would actually say hang fire for a while, because if we're waiting for the announcement on self-employment, they would probably be better off waiting and applying for the whatever assistance is available for the self-employed than claiming universal credits. Because I think once you're in the universal credit system, I think it might be difficult. If you can hang fire, because universal credits, I think, is £94.25 a week.
Yeah.
Hang fire and see what the announcement is.
On a practical note, Jackie, I was looking at the BBC News just before coming on here on the news channel, and they were saying that yesterday people who have to verify their identity were in, they had a queue of over 100,000 people on one day. And people with stories of hanging on for 8 hours and then getting automatically cut off, etc. About 500,000 people have already applied, but when you think there are 5 million plus self-employed people, if you can stay out of that queue, I'd probably think it's better for you.
Carol says, is there a template for furloughing workers available? I haven't seen one, but in the article, sorry, I keep referring to the article, but that's where we put most of the stuff. I've put a link to the ACAS website, and on there, it gives you a list of the things that you should include in that. So although it's not a template, it's very straightforward. There are, I think, 3 things that you have to agree with them, and it's on there. Follow the link, and that takes you through.
Gina's just been through, and HMRC have said that emails are legal.
Great. More templates.
Interesting. I'm reading legislation on payroll.
Can the employer withhold payment until they receive the 80%, as my client has no money coming in? This is a timing issue, this one. Again, I think we haven't been specific about withholding, because I think what the government announces these things and the detail follows possibly slightly later than we would like. So I think in principle the idea is great, and they were saying because they've teamed it in with the business loans, they might expect you to take out a loan to pay your March salary and then reclaim it back in April or at some stage. There's one about applying for business interruption loans. Do they have to go through the process, pay fees, provide financial information? Again, there is a link to the British, is it the British Business Bank, I think. There's a link in the article to that where it actually explains, and there is a, I think in there is a link to start the application process. So we found that and put that in there.
The same that has been asked, Jackie, of the rates rebate for retailers, etc., with less than 51,000 rateable value. As far as I'm aware, you don't just stop paying, you have to ring up and tell somebody you want to stop paying. Is that right?
I would imagine that you can't just withhold payments. You've got to actually agree this, that you're not going to pay it, and ask for a loan. It's like the business loans, you've got to apply for them, you've got to apply for the extension. You see, the corporation tax returns on company house, they haven't given everybody an automatic extension for 3 months. They've said you have to apply for it.
Yes.
So I would imagine, do firms need to apply for the small business grant, Sylvia? I think you have to apply for it. Yes, I'm sure you do. You have to apply for it. If you withhold, thanks Helen. If you withhold, I assume this is from paying salaries. You are in breach of contract, and that's why they've offered loans. Thank you for that comment, Helen. A dedicated website for the inclusion of employees in furlough from Paolo. The dedicated hub on the website for notifying for furloughed employees, I think was due to be available by the end of this month, which is the 31st, or however soon they can get that up. I know they're working. Oh, and the other thing I read somewhere was that, how are they linking this across to payroll? I did read, but it may be that when, perhaps when Julia comes on again, if she hasn't already answered this yesterday, that you have to set up a new furloughed working status in your payroll and pay them through a furloughed working rather than through their salaries. How that will link across, I don't know.
Furlough any of our staff, should we advise ICB? Not at this stage. You've got enough problems to be carrying on with. If you lay them off completely, in other words, you make them redundant, then we would need to know about that, because we'll take them off your list of employees. You're not using a freelancer at the moment, and they're currently listed on your practice as a freelancer. Again, you don't need to do anything. It just means that you can perhaps start using them again in the future or anything like that. So that's what we would need to know at the moment.
I think Amy from ICB has just put up about the grants. Your local authority will write to you if you're eligible for grants. So thank you for that. If that's Amy doing that, or June.
Yes.
Just running down.
Somebody just confirming, for people who weren't in right at the very beginning, Paul Beer again. Hi again, Paul. I've been told that direct debits for the VAT should be cancelled to avoid collection. That's the notice that we gave out earlier. HMRC have confirmed this. Whilst they do not intend to take money that you that is related to a new return that you put in, just for the avoidance of this happening accidentally, cancel your direct debit now. And that's quite important. They think they'll be able to stop taking it, but it's an automated system, and they're concentrating more on giving money out at the front rather than stopping taking it in at the back.
Here's an interesting comment just come up. Thank you, Kerry. For grants in Scotland, you must apply to your local council. It is different in England. So yes, I'm sorry, my apologies to our Scottish people. And I think Wales and Ireland have some differences as well. So if you're living in Northern Ireland, Wales or Scotland, please check your local regulations, because they are different.
Right, just an update on the new bill, which will include, we almost definitely believe that there'll be an increase for payments for self-employed people. It has been in the House again today since sometime earlier this morning. It's now gone to the committee stage with the House of Lords. The intention is to clear that committee and bring it back for third reading today. So that's breakneck speed. If it goes through the third reading today, it then has to wait for the royal assent. And obviously, I don't know if the Queen physically signs everything nowadays or what. I think she does, in which case Boris or somebody will be out to the castle later tonight to get the signature to come back. So that really does look as if they're pushing that through with some speed. So hopefully by tomorrow's bulletin, we might have an even better indication that something is coming. But you can start making calculations now, probably on the basis of it is an 80%. So, well, fingers crossed on that one. I mean, we've all been lobbying, obviously, not just us, every other organisation, every group, every whatever. So we can't claim anything for this other than we were part of the people lobbying for it. But I'm really pleased, because I know that if you're self-employed, and a lot of our members are the second worker, wage earner within a house, but a lot of you are actually not. You are the main wage earner, and I know it was, it was frightening times. But reiterate what I said earlier. I hope that's coming through. Make sure all those clients that are panicking as well get a call from you. If you can't get them on the phone, then send them an email, send them a text, send them something. Give them that lifeline to you and to your continued service when it's done. Actually, June's just confirmed the Queen can agree in her absence. So perhaps she's got an electronic signature. Again, given that we've just heard that the Prince of Wales has got the coronavirus bug and everybody's being locked down. It worried me a little bit, because actually I was talking to Prince Charles the day before they think he caught it. I was at a meeting, a reception at Marlborough House for the Commonwealth. And the lady that, those of you who avidly read my column will already know this. So obviously, for those one or two of you that don't, there was a lady there that was carrying the flag at the front of the procession of flags. And she had it, and she was actually at this reception. Now, thankfully, I don't think, come into contact with that lady. I was more interested in talking to Prince Charles, so that I can name drop, obviously. So anyway, I'm just touching my forehead every now and then, just to make sure I'm not getting hot, but I'm hopefully not. But our best goes out to him and to everybody else in the country that's got this. I'm wishing everybody a speedy recovery, obviously. We haven't heard at the moment of any of our members that have got it, but I'm sure if they get it, the last person they want to tell is the ICB. Jacquie.
There's an update coming in about the business grants. Somebody, I can't remember, I've lost it now, said that their council saying, go onto the website, put your postcode in and apply. So I think the answer to this application for business grants is check your local council, because it seems to be slightly varied. Here's
that in quick as well, Jacquie. Just sorry to interrupt. I would get that in quick, because councils are also losing people, and they're some things can't be done from home. There will be a skeleton staff in council offices. I would get in there as quick as you can rather than delay.
This one I think is going to go round. Someone was saying, how can we prove if somebody's at home and they're claiming furlough even if they're working from home? How are HMRC monitoring this? The answer is, I don't know. We don't know. As Gary said earlier, there's an awful lot of people are going to be trying to circumvent the system and get some help, even though they're still working. Loans from banks, are they secured? Haven't heard anything definite, but we were talking on Monday about that directors may have to give personal guarantees for loans. It's all to do with the liquidity of the company, because if the company wasn't liquid before you went into this, it's certainly not going to be when you come out. So there's no guarantee that the loan. Garry and I were talking about this earlier.
Yeah, I think what we heard was that the banks will want all directors to sign up to the loan, guarantee back as guarantors for the loan, because the bank will only get money back from the government if the business folds. So in other words, it gets into bankruptcy. So the banks have always been given lots of money. They very rarely got rid of it all, and I think there will be increasing pressure put on them to look at things differently. But they are. That's what we understand at the moment.
Someone has just said about if the 80% to self-employed is approved, then claiming universal credit, will that overall make them ineligible for the 80%? We don't know. We won't know until we've seen what comes out. There's another question about employee start dates. If they started on the 2nd of March, will they qualify for furlough as they weren't on the payroll for 29th of February? I think the answer to that is no, they won't, because the wage at which you're basing their 80% on is the wage that they were earning in February. So if they weren't earning in February, they can't base the wage. That's as we understand it.
Unfortunately, I think the option with those people, because they're on the probationary period, I think if you can't afford to pay them out, unfortunately they may just have to be laid off. I haven't heard of any option for that. And if they can't be furloughed, the question is, can you pay them more than you're able to pay your furloughed staff who are only getting 80% or 2,500 maximum? So there are a number of questions. I'm sure somebody somewhere is thinking of all this, and government is trying to cope with it. But at this moment in time, I think that would be seen as a little bit unfair that a new person might be earning, taking home 2,000 or 3,000 a month, when the furloughed people take home the minimum 2.5 or something.
I think you also need to look at employment law for new staff that have only been working with you a week or 2 weeks as to what you can legally do to lay them off. I'd say no more than that, but I'm sure there's legislation if somebody's only just started with you and you've no longer got work for them, but you need to look at employment law, and I do not know very much about that.
Right. I'm also trying to get some additional information. I don't know if you've tried also, Jacquie, about being furloughed. Not many contracts probably thought to include being furloughed. And I'm sure the intention was not therefore just to have half a dozen people who coincidentally got it in their contract. And furloughed is perhaps a term rather than, at the moment they're saying it should be providing you can furlough people according to your contract. The contracts of staff at ICB, funnily enough, does say you can be laid off. I'm not sure whether everybody in a standard contract would necessarily put that. I'm trying to make sure that people who haven't just got that weird old-fashioned furlough title in there don't get caught out on this one. But I'm not getting much of a straight answer at the moment.
But I think also, if it's in agreement with them, I don't think there's an issue. I think it's only if there's possibly a disagreement. Just a quick one here. Sally's come back. Thank you, Sally. Yes, directors do have to guarantee the loan. I spoke to a client this morning who is going through the process. So thank you for that, Sally. And is there any others? Okay.
How can we, if at all, recover the costs of the...
I do feel for Stephen. Just taking out your practice license. Yes, I really feel for you, Stephen.
Sorry, Jacquie, I was just reading. How can we, if at all, recover the costs of supporting staff during this period? We're spending days of time setting up remote working, answering questions, etc. I mean, I think answering the questions, well, that's part of your job. But if you've had to buy modems for people and various other things like that, it's just a business expense, isn't it?
I know there's I mean, my reaction to that is that, yes, there is a huge time element in this. But if in doing this, it enables you to keep your business going and to be buoyant or, you know, self-supporting at the end of this whole process, then I think maybe something that businesses decide to do.
We're getting towards the end of, sorry, I meant supporting clients. You have to bill your clients. You know, I mean, you're helping them out. I mean, you might not be able to get the normal fee from them. Perhaps you should get 80% of your fee. But nonetheless, you know, yeah, if they've got to drive their car to go and do a job, they're not going to be let off the cost of the petrol. And I think, you know, being a little bit harsh about it, you have to bill your clients somehow. It might be a retainer, it might be a one-off fee. It's up to you to decide what you've got to do to retain that client and make sure that, one, that client keeps going, but two, you keep going with that client. And, you know, it's a difficult decision always, isn't it? You know, do you support your client for nothing and then find out actually they disappear and you've got nothing left? I think we've got to be a little bit more harsh with that. Jackie, I think...
I love the comment, we've got a whole year CPD out of this in 2 weeks.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, good. Yeah, put it on your CPD. I think
Clark, yes, VAT submissions do still need to be put in even though payments are deferred. I think... Right, so what I will do after this is I will go through and all the comments. It will probably take till Friday. I've already spoken to everyone at ICB. We're looking to probably get another article out on Friday, which adds on anything. Rather than add to the one that's gone up today, we'll put a new one out. Any changes to the article today, I will make amendments to. For example, I can't remember which one it was we need to change now, but there is one that I need to change. We'll put a new article out, I think, on Friday. Hopefully, we'll try and find some more information. The biggest one at the moment is still to do with owner-manager businesses. There's a lot of questions come forward on that. So we will try and put something together for you as far as we know it. Is that okay, Garry?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, we will be on air tomorrow because I think you've asked us to do this on I'm very happy to do it. I just didn't want to bug you too much. But we will be here tomorrow. If we shorten it because nothing happened, fine, fair enough. But actually, if this legislation does get cleared today, by tomorrow we might have a little bit more to be able to talk through with you. Also, I'm very pleased to sit here and talk to you all by way of some form of support and show that we're with you. Great, happy to do that. And then, of course, finish off this week on Friday. And at the moment, subject to you telling us you're fed up with us, I think a daily get-together is something that could be useful. Now, I know some branch meetings are running at different times next week, so we might have to alter the times because they might want to use one or two of our Zoom licenses. What I will say is we had over 300 people on yesterday on the main Zoom. We then went out through the Facebooks, and I think we almost doubled that number. And I sent out the note yesterday saying that things were changing. Stop press, I think I called it. And over 7,500 of you opened that email. So you're obviously there, you're interested. We are here for you. All of our staff are working, including Mimi, who walked through the door 2 days before we all walked out of it. She's doing a great job, those of you who speak to her. And so, you know, we're all there. We're going to hang on. We're going to provide you with whatever it is you need. And I've just heard that actually we do get a few people who want to ring up and just have a chat. And, you know, some people are isolated completely from the outside world at the moment, or at least from their friends and family. So we're happy to be there for you. And just a quick mention for Susan Lang. She's got an online meeting tonight, and this is a celebration of her 6th year as a branch chair. So hi Susan, if you're on, good luck with tonight.
Sylvia's got one as well tonight.
Who?
Sylvia has a branch meeting that's going up.
Sylvia Borhill, yes, Sylvia's out there as well tonight. Look for these branch meetings on the web in the normal manner. You don't get charged for these. It's free CPD, and it's a bit more local than this, and so you'll be able to chat as well. call back. I'm not sure how long Sylvia's been a chair. She's probably about to come online and tell me, because I know she's there, or was. It's been a while. But anyway, no, she hasn't come back, so I may well have offended her and she's gone already, but hopefully not. I'm trying to keep up this as it goes on. I know what it's like now, being a newsreader, where people are saying things in your ear and you're following along, and then all of a sudden you realise you've put your foot in it one way or another. But anyway, please attend the branch meetings if you can. It gives you a chance to talk to some local people. That will be more interactive than this. I think it's probably 6 years for Sylvia as well, actually, so that's a coincidence there. But anyway, the point is, you can talk to local people and you can react and actually make some friendships which you probably haven't made yet, but will continue forward after this has all happened. So,
sorry, Gary, can I just interrupt? Paul, thank you. Just put up about a session with us tomorrow. That Sage are doing their session tomorrow as well, so we don't want to go over that.
What time's their session?
Sage.
Do you know what time it is? I thought it was earlier than this, but I thought it was 2 or something. But okay, we'll 12 panelists, 3 p.m. Oh, it's at 3, is it? Okay, well, we might not clash with them then in that case, or we might be able to stream it through this. I don't know. We'll have a think about that. Don't worry. You'll get a notification to say when this is going to happen. So I'm hoping that the Sage webinar will be good tomorrow. Give you lots of information. And isn't just trying to sell you something, but let's see how that goes.
We've got branch chairs. We've got branch chairs coming in with their data and length of service.
Right.
Love it.
On Friday there will be a list of branch chairs and how long they've been with us. I do apologise. So I'm feeling short stabbing pains in strange places. So whether or not somebody's already sticking the pins in a doll, I don't know. But never mind. And somebody has asked about the length of my hair. Well, I've always had long hair, but if I'm going to be here self-isolating for 3 months, it may look considerably longer than this, unless June agrees to take a pair of scissors to it. But we'll worry about that when it happens. Yes.
And those of us that have got very short hair that have it cut every 4 weeks, I hate to think what I'm going to be looking like in 3 months as well. So,
so I think that's probably it. I don't want to keep you all on longer than you need to. We've had an hour and a quarter, about the same as yesterday, hour and 20 minutes. Oh, you've just read a funny one. Now what's happened?
Sorry, it's about your haircut, Gary. Sorry.
Oh, is it?
Remnants of the comment on a pudding basin.
Thank you very much. If I had a pudding basin big enough, don't believe me, we would try it. But
sorry.
Yeah, listen. The main thing is to have it dyed this colour. I'm not sure what colour I really am if I don't have it dyed, because as I'm sure you know, this is called mature blonde. I pay a lot of money to get to this colour. But anyway, so look, all of you, please, above everything else, be safe out there. Be careful. Don't go out unless you have to. Enjoy this time with your family if you can. And, I know it gets a bit hair-raising, and the thought of summer holidays sometimes fill people with dread. Well, a 9-month summer holiday, I'm sure, is a bit of a worry. You've got other calls on your time to look after little ones. And I feel sorry for my poor sister who's got 4 sons, ranging from 15 to 23 or something or other, all at home at the moment, in a relatively small house. So I don't know how she's coping. But please give us a call if you need anything, if you want anything. And if you've got suggestions for anything else for us to talk about or you'd like us to cover, email us in now to customer service. It'll be passed to myself, Jackie, whoever, and we'll try and you're bursting to say something there, Jackie.
Can I just ask Clara, if that's how you pronounce your name, can you ring the office and ask to speak to me, and I'll deal with that on a one-to-one basis, your question.
Okay. Yeah, just again, to reiterate, office is open, normal telephone number, 0203 405 4000. That is exactly as it was before. You will get the phone picked up. It can be whoever picks up the phone first, but we've all moved out to our homes. But it's all done electronically, so you shouldn't notice any difference when the phone is collected. If you ring, you get one person, you need to speak another. We literally just transfer as if we were in the office. So that's easy. You shouldn't have any lumps or bumps in the service. We have the 3 main support lines still open and available. So that's a technical line, it is the legal line, and also the money laundering line if you need it. And as I say, they are staying open. We are not putting a charge on it. Everything is as always. It is free. I don't. If anything, we're reducing charges like on branch meetings and everything else, rather than bumping them up. So we're not like some other organisations. And the other thing is that we are being inundated at the moment with people who want to take another exam. They haven't taken one for years, but they suddenly think this would be great. It'll dust down the cobwebs, or it will give you a chance to go up to the next level. All our examinations are available online now, as they always have been. Examinations are taken online, and the results are given to you immediately. You press finish on your laptop or your computer. The one paper which at the moment is affected by COVID is that the M8 paper was done at a Pearson VUE Centre. Pearson VUE have closed, but actually you can still take that exam. You need to ring us about it. We have now just today signed a contract for a proctored service, which means that you can link into the proctor and they will look at your keystrokes and occasionally dip in and make sure you're there, so that we have total security that it's you sitting your exam, etc., etc. I think that is likely to be Wednesday of next week. However, if you've taken other exams at Pearson VUE Centre in the past and you now want to take your M8, then we have another way of dealing with that, and that will be available immediately. So we're as close to being all systems go as we can. Please let us know if we can do anything else at all for you. And I look forward to having another chat with you tomorrow, Thursday, at a time yet to be announced. I'll let you know in the normal manner when that is ready. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you for being with us, and good luck out there. Stay safe. See you soon.
Thank you. Stay safe. Nice to speak to you all.